The one thing that the nation's foremost expert on research on this topic, she said to me, I said, we've got this report, we're getting this traction, we need your help, do you have any media contacts? She said, no, sadly I don't. This is such a distasteful subject, nobody really wants to cover it. And so, in the most amazing way, it just so happened that Texas Scorecard had taken on this mission. You had taken on this mission at the same time that we were advocating. We didn't collaborate. We didn't really work together, but those two things came together to sort of burst this whole topic into the public consciousness.
Ready to roll?
Yep.
All right.
Real Texan.
Why should this matter to real Texans?
Welcome to Real Texans. We're talking today with another Conservative Leader Award recipient for 2025, Aileen Blachowski. Aileen, congratulations on your recognition. Well-deserved for your activism in advocating for students, parents, and teachers in the public education system. I also want to congratulate you on being a real Texan, even though you're not a native Texan. So tell us a little bit about what brought you to Texas.
Yeah, thank you. It is such an honor to be here. And the bigger honor is to receive the title of a real Texan. That means a lot to me. I moved here from California in 2020 with my family. And of course, everybody knows that the world was shut down and Gavin Newsom had shut down all of California. He shut down the beaches, all the play equipment had safety, tape all over it. There was very little we could do. And during that time, I remember sitting on my front porch. And believe it or not, I was listening to a national media interview of Shelley Luther, a Dallas salon owner, talking to a national media celebrity. And she had been jailed for opening up her salon. And then she got out of jail. And then Ted Cruz wanted to come and get his hair cut there. And I mean, that experience, I just said to myself, yeah, Texas. I could probably do this in Texas. Like, I had already been advocating for parents in public schools. And when everything was shut down, I just recognized I was surrounded by so many people that would not get up and fight. And, you know what, after hearing that interview, it was to sort of solidify the fact that, you know what, maybe Texas is the place for us. So that's what drew us here. I got here as fast as I could.
Right. Well, once you were in Texas, you and your family, and you were, your kids were getting into the public school system here. What did you find was going on, and what spurred you to continue your activism in the public education arena?
Well, the interesting thing was I had never been a public school parent. I'd homeschooled for many years. We'd sent our kids to private school. But when we moved to Texas, my husband said, this is Texas, the schools are going to be fine. And I thought, okay, they're going to be fine. So we enrolled our kids in public school here. I was here on a house hunting trip, and I had heard that the Prosper Independent School District would not be closing their schools. And I thought, well, there must be real conservatives over there in that community. So we looked here. And what I found was alarming. Every kid on a device, no phonics being taught. There was some weird content being brought up in art class, history class, science class, Spanish class. The social emotional learning was off the charts. The library books were a mess. And then 2022 happened, and we had the terrible story that received nationwide attention. A bus driver had molested 2 little girls in our school district, and something seemed so off about that whole thing. The entire thing was kept under the rug for months. Parents who had kids on that bus were never informed, and that brought for me, whereas in California I was advocating for the abolition of comprehensive sex ed, I just thought, this is the natural outcropping of what happens if you don't take this out of our society. If you don't take the sexualization of children out of our society, you get adults who feel like they have license to sexualize children. And then that happened in my community. And that just lit a spark that has never died out. I was determined to figure out what's supposed to happen. What did they do? Did they do what was supposed to happen? What does the law say? What are the consequences? And that set me on, essentially, it's been almost 4 years now, a 4-year journey of exposing, essentially, what does not happen in our schools when children are harmed.
Well, interestingly enough, that particular story out of Prosper ISD is what sparked Texas Scorecard's focus on educator sexual misconduct, which we did not realize at the time was as prevalent or was being hushed up, as it were, in many schools. But you went beyond just your individual activism, which was kind of your natural instinct to do as well, but formed up with some other individuals to create a great team called Texas Education 911, and that then grew to also work with a whole network across the state. And you took some of these things that you had learned and uncovered into the Texas legislature. Tell us how that went.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. We organized under the banner of Texas Education 911, founded by Melissa Beckett. She's actually running for a House seat in East Texas now. We're so proud of her. Her leadership brought so many people together from around the state. I was so blessed to be welcomed into that group. They were very open to hearing ideas and bringing priorities to that group. They trained us up on how to work through the Republican Party process at convention, write resolutions, bring solutions that mattered. But the pinnacle was this last legislative session when we put together this report. There were so many people who contributed to gathering the data for this report. And we called it state-sponsored child abuse because essentially when we went and dug deep and looked at these stories from all over the state, what we found is that every story these parents would come to us and share what happened, it was eerily similar. They were targeted. They were made to feel like their child who had been sexually victimized had become the problem. The investigations didn't happen. Nobody went to jail. Evidence was tampered with or lost. It was terrible. And we just thought, my gosh, so many child victims. Then we would try and refer them to a lawyer, only to find out so few lawyers would take these cases. Why? Because you can't sue a school district in Texas. So all of these problems in the system, we found out the state had an educator misconduct database, but it was incomplete. The data fields weren't all filled in. Some data was completely missing. The data from Prosper was never there. It's been recreated now, but somehow, but we brought out all those problems and exposed it. And we had a generous donor who paid to have this published. And we took that to every office in the Capitol. Tons of volunteers came and helped us do that. Once we exposed this to every single lawmaker in the state, it was hard for the state to ignore the fact that somehow, they may not like it, but the truth is, they're complicit. This has been going on for years, and not to have done anything about it or paid attention to it up until this point was absolutely grossly negligent. And so we gave it the title it deserved, state-sponsored child abuse. It was very hard to get traction. We brought this to the governor's office multiple times. Some of our solutions didn't get hearings. But the truth is, it penetrated the hearts of many people. And unlike these issues in the past, the one thing that the nation's foremost expert on research on this topic, she said to me, I said, we've got this report. We're getting this traction. We need your help. Do you have any media contacts? She said, no, sadly, I don't. This is such a distasteful subject. Nobody really wants to cover it. And so, in the most amazing way, it just so happened that Texas Scorecard had taken on this mission. You had taken on this mission at the same time that we were advocating. We didn't collaborate. We didn't really work together, but those two things came together to sort of burst this whole topic into the public consciousness, was what needed to happen. You can't solve a problem if you don't know you have it, and if you don't know what it entails, right? So we were blessed because we did get some traction with some legislators. And by the end of this last session, one of our very important priorities, which was to end governmental immunity for the liability that school districts and their employees have when they harm a child, that is now abolished. A great win for Texas parents.
That was a huge win that involved so many people,
Yes.
yourself, many others, and I will say a bipartisan coalition.
Huge.
And we had moms from all over the state telling their heartbreaking stories that literally inside the legislative chamber did change hearts and minds. We had past victims of this abuse come forward and speak out. thankfully, that had never happened before
Mm.
in my experience. This whole broad coalition, parents, educators, victims, all of it, their stories came together and resonated. And like you said, it was too much to be ignored. That huge win, it was House Bill 4623 as we know it,
Yes.
ended this blanket immunity
Yeah.
that school districts have when they are negligent and contribute to the ability of their school employees to sexually abuse students. You would think that would be something that everybody would get behind. There was still some resistance, but we're starting to see the very first cases be filed since that took effect. A big one in nearby Salina
Yes.
ISD, where there's a big case pending. But there's one other legislative win out of the many that y'all proposed based on your findings. Some very, solution-oriented legislative proposals that y'all gave, which was to have an inspector general overseeing education and especially these issues. And our timing today is propitious because just this week, the state has named Levi Fuller as the very first inspector general for educator misconduct. And this is a role that is going to laser focus on these issues, rooting them out and preventing them. So tell me how you feel about that.
Well, it is a huge win. I will say that. We were looking for an independent inspector general that would have authority to refer for criminal prosecution. It sounds to me like he will have that authority. We were looking for an inspector general that would have the ability to address fraud, waste, and abuse in pub ed. The public education the budget is like almost 50% of the state's spending budget. It needs to be laser focused on. We need a Doge for public ed. But if I had to triage the issues, I would say this issue in particular, student abuse by trusted adults in our schools, has to be the number one thing. And so maybe he's starting there. That's my hope. My hope is that Mr. Fuller is starting there. I've had an opportunity to speak with him. He is aware of our report. He said that he will be squarely focused on this and reading this cover to cover and beginning to address these issues. He assured me that he's serious about getting his job done and that, he said, I hope that you'll be proud of the work we do. I'm looking forward to that. I'm really looking forward to that. But most especially for all of those victims and those affected families who came, the organizational betrayal that these families undergo really, really wrecks them. It wrecks the victims and it wrecks the families. And for them, this is the biggest win. There's somebody watching out now. It took so much for some of those families to come and speak before the legislature. And all we did was say, we'll be there with you. We'll go with you. You won't be alone. And this win is for them. And it's for every advocate and every person who made a phone call, showed up at a hearing, wrote an email, shared stories on social media. It takes everyone. It's, I feel like this sword, I wish I could send it around to everyone because they all deserve it. So many people participated, and then in the end, despite all our human frailties and everything, but for God, that's how all these things are won. And so I'm going to be praying for Mr. Fuller. He's filling some big shoes, lots of expectations out there, lots of doubts too. Will the state allow him to do his job? We'd like to see. We're watching closely. But I'm very hopeful, and I'm glad to see that policymakers recognize that, yes, indeed, that was a solution that was absolutely needed, and they've done their part to bring it.
Well, very good. We will certainly continue to be watching for what happens. So for the future, with that segue, what do you see on the horizon for yourself, for the network of advocates and organizers? Obviously, there's still some things in that report, and I will say I got a chance to speak with Mr. Fuller as well, and he said that they are going to incorporate as many of the recommendations as possible from this report. So they are working from the frontline reporting coming from researchers like yourself and from parents and students that have shared their story. So, what do you see besides watching this unfold? Any top priorities coming ahead?
Well, I think that advocacy groups should focus on the things that this Inspector General isn't focusing on now. So fraud and waste, things that are related to school governance, oversight, simplifying elections, Open Meetings Act, Public Information Act. There's a lot of issues. We need to get the team of 8 concept out of our school boards and get boards focused squarely on overseeing their superintendents again. I think that is something everybody agrees on. One priority we did not get out of this was an end to taxpayer-funded lobbying, but specifically in education. Believe you me, everybody else would get behind that as soon as that became a legislative priority or an option to vote for or get behind. I hope that becomes a reality. For me, I'm going to be focusing specifically on prevention measures. You know, we got that HB 4623. It's reactive. The abuse has to happen in order for you to be able to sue. I think we need to look at employment verification. We need to look at some way of appropriately screening our school employees to ensure they're safe to be around children. Some people have proclivities and ideas and intentions that they just shouldn't be around children. And real educators, they don't want those people in their schools either. This is about restoring the dignity of the teaching profession. So much needed in the state of Texas today and probably around the nation. So prevention efforts are going to be my particular focus. I know that Texas Ed 911 will come out strong on some of those other issues in terms of governance and oversight and transparency. And I think that we're on the right road. We're focusing again. There's a focus again on writing, reading, and arithmetic, you know, the DEI stuff. We've got kind of some of that taken care of. And really ensuring that the laws that we pass, because the legislature did pass some good laws last session. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But the school districts are ignoring them. And the school lawyers are advising them to do so. And so we're going to get that cleaned up too.
So that's another opening for people that might want to get involved and aren't sure where to jump in. I mean, there's at the state level, you have the legislature, but right locally, your own school board is a great place to be looking. School board elections are coming up soon. People need to be very informed about their candidates and what they stand for. They need to be paying attention to, as you say, are their school boards following through with the law, with the things they're supposed to be doing? Are they responding to the parents? Are they supporting the students? You know, are they creating that safe environment? So thank you so much for sharing your journey, what you have done to, again, become a real Texan and a real conservative leader here in the community, and being an example that others can look to and follow if they also want to get involved. Thank you, Aileen Blachowski.
Thank you so much. The last thing I want to say is every single person who advocated in this space understands and knows without a shadow of a doubt that without Texas Scorecards reporting, none of this would be where it is today. We are eternally grateful to you. Thank you.
Thank you.